Hi friends, how's it going? I hope you're all having a great day. My name is Andrea and I wanted to welcome you to my channel, Eldon Acres. Thank you so much for joining me today. So today is Sunday and per usual we're going to do our Sunday meal prep. So on Sundays, I like to prepare a couple meals for us to enjoy through the week. Both my husband Brandon and I work away from the house through the week, so it's nice to just have meals prepared. When we get home, we can throw them in the oven to reheat them or the air fryer, however we decide to do that. But it just takes, the stress of getting home and trying to figure out what to make for supper every night through the week just that much less. So this is what I love to do. I hope it gives you some inspiration and some ideas of what you could possibly do in your home too. So I'm not sure how much we're gonna get done today. I'm getting kind of a late start to the day. It is the middle of November, and this morning we actually took my daughter and did some Santa pictures. So normally I like to get started on my meal prep days bright and early, get everything done and out of the way so that Sunday afternoons we can kind of enjoy some family time. But today, unfortunately, that just wasn't how things planned out, and that's okay. We will get our meal prep done and we'll have some delicious meals for the week ahead. So just off to the side here, I have a large pile of meat. Now, again, I don't know how much of this we are going to get through, but at least I have the meat thawed. So what I will probably do if I don't get all of it, put together in the applications that we want to eat it, I'll just kind of cook all the ground beef up, and then at least it's cooked, so that that's, at least one step off the list. Like cooking the meat usually takes a bit of time. First things first though, we're going to start with cooking up 2 chicken breasts to go with supper tonight. So supper tonight, my mom actually picked up a ravioli package from Costco. So it's a Boursin cheese ravioli. I'll just actually pull it out of the fridge to show you what I'm talking about because it looks absolutely delicious. Okay, so this is the Boursin cheese ravioli. Sorry if it's kind of glary there. I do have a light. It's kind of a dim day, so I do have a light behind the camera there. But this is what we're going to have for supper. So what I'm going to do is, because we like to have a protein with our meal, I'm going to cook up 2 chicken breasts. This is one of my favorite ways to cook them up when I don't have a ton of time, but I want something delicious. So we're going to cook up some chicken breasts. I'm just going to season them. I've got my bowl. We're going to do like a quick little rub to go on them. And then just behind me here, I've got my Ninja Foodi grill organized. So I'm going to cook the chicken breasts while we're preparing something else. Oftentimes when I'm in the kitchen, I'm kind of doing a couple different things at once. It's a little bit of a dance. You don't have to cook like this. This is just, what works for me. I've just got a few minutes here today to get that done. So that's what we'll have tonight. I'll probably make a cream sauce of some sort. Last night for supper we had venison steaks with scalloped potatoes and a salad. And with the steaks I did a, like a mushroom cream sauce to go on top. So good. I will have to link that recipe. Actually, I took a video of us kind of preparing the venison steaks and how it kind of all came together, and I'll probably be uploading that. Hopefully by the time you're seeing this video, I will have already posted that video. So if you want the recipe for that, you'll have to go and search through my other videos for that one. But anyways, I have some leftover of the mushroom cream sauce that I'm probably going to add to a pan, and I'll just make like a mushroom Alfredo sauce probably. Honestly, I'll just see what happens. Sometimes this is how I cook, and I apologize if you don't like that, but that's how I like to cook. I just kind of throw things in a pan and hope for the best, and usually it turns out pretty good. Okay, so first things first, let's get going on our rub for the chicken breast. So we're just gonna cook the 2 chicken breasts. That's to go with supper tonight. I already said that. But anyways, first things first, I believe we need about a tablespoon of olive oil. Actually, I'm probably gonna do like maybe half a tablespoon because we're only doing 2 chicken breasts, so. And per usual, I'm not measuring it, but you can if you want. Measuring spoon. I am gonna measure out the spices though. So then it's super easy. We just need half a teaspoon of kosher salt. Now you'll see I'm actually using pickling salt. So I use pickling salt because that's what I have on hand. I actually ran out of kosher salt and I haven't bought any more, but pickling salt does pretty much the same thing. And then, excuse me, I just inhaled some pepper. Oh, that's awful. So then we're gonna do half a teaspoon of black pepper, half a teaspoon of paprika, half a teaspoon of oregano. I usually do a little bit more. We like oregano quite a bit. And half a teaspoon of garlic powder. Probably a heaping half because again, we like garlic. And we're just gonna give it a little mix. And I'm just gonna add a touch more olive oil. It's just pretty dry in the bowl. Just a smidge. And then we're gonna get our chicken breasts in there and we're just gonna kind of rub our chicken breasts around. And this is not I mean, you could use it as a marinade, but it's a rub. Or, yeah, I guess that's what you call it, a rub. The chicken doesn't need to sit with it on there before you grill it, basically. So these are nice big chicken breasts, which is good. That third one we're gonna use in a couple minutes for another meal prep recipe. So I'm just gonna roll the chicken breast around in here, get all that nice flavor all over them. I apologize for the headband. Actually, I don't know why I'm apologizing, but the reason why I've got the headband on is because we were outside. It's kind of a cool, damp day out there, and I've been in and out of the house, so it's just easier just to put it on and leave it on. Plus, I'm sure my hair under the headband was probably a little bit wild and crazy, so just keeps things under wrap. All right, and that's what we're looking like right now. So I'm gonna get our Ninja preheated behind me, and we're gonna get these grilling. First, I need to wash my hands though. Okay, so we have our Ninja grill preheated and it's ready for the chicken to go in. So with my grill, I have a probe that I can plug into it, and then I can set it to chicken and it'll just cook it until the chicken is done, and then it lets me know and it shuts off, lets it rest. It just kind of does its thing. So I love this machine. It just takes the guesswork right out of it. So let's get our chicken in there and get that cooking so that we can get started on the next thing. All right, so we've got our chicken in the grill just behind us. So now I wanna prep some onions. So we are going to need onions for 2 different recipes. So the first recipe that we are going to need some onion for is tikka masala. So the tikka masala, I'm going to make the sauce from scratch, but I'm going to make a chicken tikka masala so that when we get home, all we need to do, it'll be fully cooked, and I'm going to do it, I keep going back and forth. I was gonna do it in my Instant Pot because then it's just getting one device dirty, that's it. But then I wondered, I pulled out my Dutch oven. I thought I was going to do it in there. Because same thing, I can just do it, yeah, I think I'll do that. Because I can just do it all in there and then I can let it cool and then put the entire Dutch oven into the fridge. I'm actually making a double recipe, so I will end up freezing half of this and then the other half, of course, we will eat this week for supper. Usually when I meal prep, I plan to eat like one meal twice kind of thing. So anyways, half of the onion is for the chicken tikka masala, and then the other half is for a meatloaf. And the meatloaf, I haven't decided yet if I'm just going to combine it, put everything into the pan and refrigerate it, or if I'm going to bake it off and have it completely done. I don't know yet. It also depends on how much time I have. Always comes down to the time. Right now my daughter is napping, so that's when I usually do most of my meal prep, is when she's napping, or her and Brandon usually go and do some fun things while I'm doing this, but we'll see what happens today. Brandon is doing some outside winter prep. As I said, we're the middle of November, and usually by now we've had some kind of crummy weather, whether it's snow or ice, but either way, we've usually had some rotten weather by now. This year we haven't, knock on wood, but we know that we have to get ready. So he's actually gone to pick up our tractor. It was just over at our in-laws, which is where our horses are, so we use it over there kind of through the summer months, and then come winter we bring the tractor back and get the snow blower hooked up and get ready for the snow to fly. And I'm gonna start crying here because of these darn onions. This is one job that I absolutely despise. Usually I do the same thing with onions as I do with my garlic, as I will just take some time and process a whole bunch of them all at once and then freeze them so that I have homegrown, fresh, ready to use onions in the freezer. But I didn't grow enough onions to do that this year, and I didn't end up buying any from a local farmer, so I'm not really set up to do that this year. I still might pick up some onions, even just from like the grocery store, and do that with, because it is just so much nicer than having to cry every time you need some onions. I know some people have like the goggles that you can wear, or they say like chewing gum or something helps. I've tried the gum. I haven't tried the goggles, but it is what it is. All right, that is our onions done. I'm going to go blow my nose and pull myself together, and then we will get going on the next step. So we have our onions. I just put them in a bowl here so that I can set them off to the side. So half of them, as I said, will be used in the tikka masala sauce, and the other half will go into the meatloaf. So I'm just going to set them off to the side. Now what we're going to do is get our chicken cut up. So I'm going to use that leftover chicken breast, and then I have a package of some boneless, skinless chicken thighs that we're going to also use. And I'm just going to cut the chicken up into bite-sized pieces, and then we will brown it in the Dutch oven, remove it, then we'll make the sauce, and then we'll put the chicken back in to finish cooking in the sauce. So we're just going to get started on cutting up the chicken. So I just like to trim any kind of fat bits off. Sometimes you can get some fatty pieces on the chicken thighs, and I don't really like that, so I just trim it off and go from there. So yeah, I just do kind of bite-sized pieces. Doesn't have to be fancy, you just want it cut up small enough that you don't really need to use a fork and knife when you're eating it, basically. is our chicken breast ready to be flipped. Alright, so we've got our chicken all cut up into bite-sized pieces. I've got our Dutch oven just here, and it's got some 2 tablespoons of olive oil and 2 tablespoons of butter heating up. So it's starting to sizzle, as I'm sure you can hear. So we're just going to get our chicken in there, and basically we're just going to brown the chicken. We're not going to cook it fully through yet. We're just going to brown it, get some nice color on it, and then we're going to remove the chicken and make the sauce, put the chicken back in to finish cooking. I'm just going to leave that, and I'm not going to touch it for about 2 to 3 minutes so it can get some nice beautiful color on the one side, and then we'll give it a stir and let it cook the rest of the way. Alrighty, so we've got our chicken just finished up in the grill. We've got our chicken pieces just finishing up behind us in the Dutch oven for our tikka masala. So next I wanted to get started on our meatloaf. So I am kind of following a recipe, but you know how I like to cook, so we'll see how this turns out. So first of all, I'm going to add my garlic. So we really like garlic, so I'm going to add about 4 tablespoons of finely chopped garlic. Now this is the garlic that is out of my freezer. If you've watched my videos before, you know that in the fall I process a whole bunch of garlic. I just put it through my food processor and I freeze it in these pucks on a sheet pan, and then I put them into freezer bags and use it all year through. So I did pull them out about half an hour ago. They're starting to get pretty soft, like I can squish them there with my finger, so that'll be just fine. That'll work in with our ground beef mixture, but I'm not going to put my ground beef in yet. I'm going to put all my ingredients in here, mix all of that, and then I'll add my ground beef, so that'll just give my garlic a little bit more time to thaw out. Then I need about a medium onion, and we just cut up about 4 onions, so I'm just going to take like about a handful is probably about a medium onion. Maybe a little bit more. We like onion. So the onion, ideally it's finely diced. Ours is not, but that's okay. We like onion, so we won't mind the flavor that it gives. Now we're going to add about 3 tablespoons. I usually keep a tea towel over here so that I can wipe my hands off, so I'm not constantly wiping them on myself. But I forgot to do that. So we've just got our tea towel there. So now about 3 tablespoons of ketchup. Use whatever kind of ketchup you like. I don't make ketchup from scratch. I've never done it. I've heard from other people that it's not as good when you make it from scratch. One of these days I'll try it, but not today. So 1, 2, 3-ish. And then we're going to add, let's add our milk. So we're going to add a 1/3 cup of milk. And you can use whatever milk you want. I have homogenized milk. That's what my daughter drinks, so that's what we have available. So we're going to put that in. Now that moisture is going to help the garlic melt as well, or soften I should say. I'm going to put the milk right in the fridge right now so I don't forget it out. Good, so that's the milk. Now we're going to add some salt and pepper and other seasonings. So I'm going to add probably, the recipe says that I'm kind of following, says a 1/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper. I'm probably going to add full teaspoon. We like pepper, and I also like our beef to be well seasoned, especially because this is store-bought ground beef, not our homegrown. So I do like to season it well. Same with salt. It says salt, 1.5 teaspoon of salt or to taste. So that's about one. Probably gonna do 2.5-ish. And then I'm gonna add some oregano, probably about 2 teaspoons. Some paprika. Now I am just gonna grab a measuring spoon. The recipe says 1/2 teaspoon of ground paprika. This is a 1/4 teaspoon, so I'm just gonna do 2 heaping 1/4 teaspoons. Now, I didn't really need to measure it, but if you get, like, because this is a resealable, and if you get the paprika in the zipper, like the Ziploc zipper, then you can't reseal it. So it's much easier and nicer for you in the future if you use a spoon of some description. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of basil. Probably, the recipe that I'm following calls for Italian seasoning. I'm out of that right now, so that's why I did the oregano, and then I'll do the basil. Probably about 1/2 teaspoon or so of basil, dried basil. What am I missing? My eggs. So my chickens are on a bit of a hiatus, but my goose is laying right now, which is kind of funny. It's the wrong time of year, but look at the size of this thing. So normally 1 goose egg is equivalent to 3 chicken eggs. My recipe calls for 2 large eggs. So I'm gonna use this, and I might just have to use a little bit of extra breadcrumbs and possibly add some extra ground beef. So instead of this being a 2-pound meatloaf, we might turn it into a 3-pound and actually divide it into 2. I'm not sure yet. We'll see what happens, but let's get this added. Now I am gonna crack this into another bowl, just, you know, as a safety precaution. It was just laid yesterday and I collected it, but I just like to get in the habit of cracking them in another vessel and then putting it in, just in case you come across a bad one or you get some shell in there, whatever it might be. All right, we've got our goose egg, so let's get it cracked. I've actually never cooked with goose eggs before, so this will be a first. Now, the shell is much harder than a chicken egg shell, so it does take a little bit more force to crack. There we go. It's very big. So that's what our mixture for our meatloaf is looking like right now. We're gonna add our very large goose egg. So it's almost 3/4 of a cup for 1 goose egg. That's quite a bit. Now, as I said, I've never actually cooked with goose eggs before, but I've heard that they're rich, like more of a rich flavor than a chicken egg is. Not sure what that really means, but anyway, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get my mixture kind of mixed up a little bit here, just so we can ensure that those flavors are all combined, and then I'll just kind of help that garlic, those garlic pucks melt a little bit there. So I need to get my ground beef in here, but I also need to still add my breadcrumbs. Now, I don't have any breadcrumbs left in the freezer. Normally, anytime I make fresh bread, if we're not going to use it up, I just throw it in the freezer and then I whip up some breadcrumbs and then keep them in the freezer for us to use. But unfortunately, I don't have any at the moment. I'm not really sure how that happened, but I have some store-bought breadcrumbs, so we're going to use those. And the recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup, right? Yes. of panko breadcrumbs. I don't know, these just say, my husband got these Italian style breadcrumbs with Italian Romano cheese. I'm sure it'll be delicious. I don't think it matters. So that's 3/4 of a cup. I'm gonna add just a little bit extra just because of that extra egg that's in there. And now I'm gonna get my ground beef in. So I'm gonna put this entire package, this is a large package, 1.208 kilograms. So that's close to 3 pounds, which is fine, that'll be good. So I'm just gonna get that in here. I did go ahead and turn our chicken pieces off, so they're just sitting in the Dutch oven, just turned off. I'll come back to that in a minute once I get this mixed up. So I know I say this in most of my videos, but anytime you're doing a meal prep day, do yourself the favor of pulling out your garbage. All right, so I just got my hands washed, and we're gonna get in here and get our meatloaf mixture all worked together. So you can do this however you want, but the easiest way that I have found in the past is good clean hands. I use like a scrub brush to get them really clean, and then just get in there and get it mixed up. So that's what we're looking like right now. It's usually quite cold, or it should be, because your ground beef should have been in the fridge. So sometimes I do have to take a couple breaks when I'm mixing this up. And it's kind of just like kneading bread. You just work it in until all your ingredients are nicely incorporated. Now you don't really want to over mix it if you can avoid it. So I just kind of put my hand in and roll it up. I want to make sure that garlic puck, wherever it wound up, has been broken down and distributed evenly. All right, that's what we're looking like. So I'm just going to set this aside, let it rest, and get those flavors all in delicious marinating, so to speak. I'm going to wash my hands, and then we will be back when we are putting it in our loaf pan. Okay, so we've got our chicken for our tikka masala. It's all done. I'm going to show you what it looks like here. Whoops. So it's nice and browned on a few sides there, and honestly it's probably cooked through because I let it cook a little bit longer than I initially planned. So I'm just going to use a slotted spoon, and we're just going to take it out and set it on a plate here, and then we're going to start making our sauce. So the nice thing about using this pan is it gets all the nice brown crispy bits on the bottom. And then when we make our sauce, that's going to add lots of beautiful flavor to our sauce. And once I get all this out, I will show you what the bottom of the pan is looking like. I'm sorry, I should have used a wooden spoon. It wouldn't have been as loud. Okay. So that is our beautiful chicken. We're just going to set it aside over here. This is what the bottom of our pan is looking like. So I'm going to put the pan back onto medium, and I'm going to add our onions in here. So we want to brown or caramelize our onions. And I think it was about 2 medium onions. So I'm not going to add all of them, but I'm going to add most of them. And I have my garlic in here as well, fine. I'm just going to use, I think, all of the onions. And then I've still got our thawed garlic there. We're gonna add that here in just a minute. So I'm gonna let that start cooking down. The moisture from the onions is going to help deglaze the pan and bring up all that beautiful goodness in the bottom. Alrighty, so while I'm waiting for our onions to caramelize, I figured I would go ahead and grate up some fresh ginger. So I don't often use fresh ginger just because I don't usually have it on hand, but I know it's going to add some beautiful flavor to this recipe. So I did go ahead and grab some the other day when I was at the grocery store. And now I just need to find my vegetable peeler. There it is. So the recipe calls for, I believe it's, 2 tablespoons finely grated fresh ginger. So I'm just gonna peel maybe half of it. And get any bad bits off of there. Perfect. Oh, it smells delicious. Like, so good. Okay, now I have to find my, what do I need? My grater. I need a fine grate. So let me dig out my box grater and we'll use the one edge of that. It usually works pretty well. Alrighty, so I've got our box grater. Now that's kind of your regular cheese grater, and on this side it's finer grate, so that's what I'm going to use. And we're just going to kind of eyeball, what did I say, 2 tablespoons. I love the smell of fresh ginger. It's so good. I should really cook with fresh ginger more. It just is so delicious. And I want a little bit more, I think. I don't think I have quite 2 tablespoons, so I'll probably actually use this entire nub. So we'll just get the rest of the skin grated off of it here, or peeled, I should say. Whoops. All right, that should do it. I'm gonna give our onions a little stir. Alrighty, so we've got our 2 tablespoons of ginger going in. Now I added a little bit of liquid to the bottom of the pan. I just added some white wine just to help deglaze the bottom of the pan. You could use chicken broth as well, that would work perfectly. And now I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of minced garlic. And again, that's just the garlic that I thawed out earlier. Give this a stir. Oh, it's smelling absolutely beautiful. Just let that cook for a minute. Okay, so we've got our onion, garlic, ginger mixture sauteed here. It's cooked down, it's nice and fragrant. So now we're gonna get our spices added so that we can toast the spices. So the first thing we need, and I've got my recipe just here because I don't have it memorized, but the first thing we need is a tablespoon of garam masala. It smells absolutely delicious. And the brand that I use is the President's Choice. It's really delicious, and I like that one, so that's what we use. All right, so next 2 teaspoons of ground cumin. So 2 teaspoons. And all of that moisture that I added into the pan has all evaporated now, so that's good. We don't have any extra in there that we don't need. 2 teaspoons of coriander, of ground coriander. Actually, it doesn't say, but I have ground coriander, so that's what we're going to use. 1, 2 teaspoons of chili powder, 1 teaspoon of turmeric. If you've never cooked with turmeric, I highly suggest giving it a try. It's one of those spices that can seem a little bit intimidating, but the color that it adds and just a slight, beautiful spice flavor, it's just wonderful. I highly suggest. Now we need a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of pepper. I am going to measure this because I've already got my measuring spoons out. Salt and black pepper, probably a little bit extra black pepper. Okay, so now we just want to make sure that our spices get nice and toasty. We don't want to burn them. We're just going to give them a little mix. Oh, that is smelling absolutely incredible. And this is what we're looking like, kind of like a paste. So I'm actually going to set that off the heat, and I'm going to get my liquid ingredients together. So next we're going to add our tomato paste. The recipe calls for a plain Greek yogurt, which I don't have, so I'm actually going to substitute and use a little bit extra heavy cream. There is heavy cream called for in the recipe, as well as some cream cheese. I've done this before and it works just fine. I have lots of cream cheese on hand, and unfortunately I just don't have the plain yogurt, which is fine. This is often how I cook. We just kind of sub in what we have available. There's no need to make a special trip to the grocery store. For me, my closest grocery store, well, I have a convenience store close by, but it would not have plain Greek yogurt. So the closest grocery store is probably 15-20 minutes, and round trip, that's half an hour of my day gone. Well, probably more than that, because it would take me some time to get in and get out of the grocery store. So we're not doing that. We're just going to make do with what we have. So let me get that stuff together. So I've got my brick of cream cheese here. I'm going to put that in first so that can start to melt right away. We're just going to put that right in the bottom. Now I could have cut that up to make life a little bit easier to speed the melting process, but I didn't think to do that ahead of time until I started talking. So yes, that would speed things up a little bit. I'm going to just let this melt for a couple minutes. I'm going to put the heat back on, and then we'll add the rest of our ingredients. We have our cream cheese most of the way melted. So next we are going to add some tomato paste, an entire can of tomato paste. I'm going to get that in there. And we'll just give that a mix. Make sure we've got everything well incorporated. I wish you could smell my kitchen right now. It smells amazing. It's looking more and more beautiful as we go. All right, so now we've got our tomato paste in there. So next we are going to add 1.5 cups of heavy cream. Just get that added in. So we'll just mix that until that is fully combined as well. Beautiful. Okay, so the last ingredient, and this is kind of like a little bit of a strange ingredient, but we need a tablespoon of brown sugar. And I assume that's just to help cut the acidity of that tomato paste. I just have to grab my tablespoon measure. All right, so we're going to do a tablespoon of brown sugar. Now I have dark brown sugar, which is what I use. Use whatever you have. It's not overly important if it's light or dark brown sugar. Perfect. So now we're just going to let that simmer away. Actually, I'm going to give it a stir and then add my chicken back in. everything is well incorporated there. Beautiful. And I think most of my cream cheese has melted down at this point. We're gonna let this simmer probably for an hour or so. So that'll give the cream cheese more time to melt down as well. All right, so we're gonna get our chicken, bite-sized chicken pieces back in, as well as any juices that are left on the pan. That is all beautiful flavor. You don't wanna waste any of those juices. Okay, so we'll just give this a stir, one final stir, and then we're just gonna let it do its thing and simmer away. Now, as it simmers, depending on how you like your sauce, you might want to add a little bit of chicken broth, a little bit more heavy cream, or potentially water or wine, whatever your preference is. But as it simmers down, some of the sauce will evaporate. I will put my lid on, so that will help a little bit. But it just, you know, if you want a thinner sauce, just add some liquid of your choice. All right, I'm gonna bring you in and show you what we're looking like at this point. How good does that look? Alrighty, so behind us, we've got our chicken tikka masala just simmering away, getting beautiful and flavorful. So now we're gonna move on to the meatloaf. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get our meatloaf into our 2 meatloaf pans. So I'm gonna cook off both of these. One we'll eat this week, the other one I will pop in the freezer and freeze. But I want them both baked off. I don't want to freeze it raw. And I might regret this. I've never done it this way before, but I think it should work out just fine. Time will tell. In my mind, it should work. So I'm just going to kind of divide the meat mixture here. My bowl up. So I've got one that will be a little bit smaller than the other, which is just fine. I probably won't leave all of that in this one. I'll probably divide it up a little bit more evenly, but these are just the 2 loaf pans that I have. So of course one's a stone pan, so one will bake a little bit differently than the other. So we're just gonna push it down in, nice and evenly. And we're just gonna kind of push it down somewhat evenly. So I do have my oven preheated to 350. That's what we're going to bake these at. Sorry, 375. So I'm gonna bake them at 375 for uncovered for 40 minutes. In the meantime, we will make our glaze to go on top, and so once that's done baking, we put the glaze on and then bake them for another 15 to 20 minutes. So I'm gonna pop these in the fridge, kind of do a quick little kitchen cleanup and get a bowl, and then we'll get going on the glaze. All right, so we're gonna get going on the glaze for our meatloaf. So I'm not really gonna measure anything, but down below I will include a recipe that I use to kind of inspire me. I know, I'm sorry. I can't help it. So we're gonna add some brown sugar. I'm gonna say probably about 3 heaping tablespoons of brown sugar. And again, this is a dark brown sugar. You can use whatever you have available to you, whether it's dark or light. It won't make a huge difference. So that was 3 heaping tablespoons. We're gonna add some salt, about, calls for a 1/4 teaspoon. Maybe I'll measure out my salt because I don't want it to be too crazy. So I'm gonna do just shy of a 1/2 teaspoon. Because I am kind of doubling this recipe, like I know I have 2 meatloaves, but I didn't fully double the recipe, if that makes sense. I should have done 4 pounds of ground beef and I did 3. So I 1.5 the recipe, I guess, but I'm still getting 2 meatloaves. I know, this is just how I cook. I'm sorry. I can't help it. All right, now we're gonna add, okay, so we've got our brown sugar, our salt. We're gonna add some onion powder, and I'm gonna add about a teaspoon. And then we're going to add some garlic powder. I'm going to do, I don't know, 2 teaspoons. I forgot I was gonna add fresh garlic to this, but that's okay. I can use up the fresh garlic in another recipe that I'm going to do. Maybe not today, but that's all right. And then about half a teaspoon of black pepper, probably a heaping half. I might use a little bit more here. We like pepper. And then we're gonna add ketchup and vinegar. So the vinegar is just a splash, like 2 teaspoons. In my case, maybe a tablespoon. So now we're gonna add about a cup of ketchup. I should have just taken the lid off to do this part. This is kind of silly, wasn't it? All right, that's gotta be about a cup. Now we're just gonna mix it all up. I'm gonna grab a spatula. Alrighty, so we've got our glaze all mixed up here. It's looking lovely. So we're just gonna set this aside until we need it. We've got our timer set for our meatloaf, so about 30 minutes left on that. I did behind me, I just moved our chicken tikka masala to the back burner, and on the front burner, I do have a pot of water on to boil so that I can cook up our pasta, our Borzen tortellinis, I think it's called. So we'll get that going so that we can have supper on the table here shortly. Okay, so we've got our water boiling. I'm gonna get our, oh, it's ravioli, not tortellini. I think I was calling it tortellini, sorry. But we're gonna get our raviolis in here, and they only take 4 minutes. So I'm just gonna gently put them in. Oops, run away. There's probably a better way to go about this, but all right. Hey Google, set timer for 4 minutes.
4 minutes, and that started now.
Okay, so we're gonna let these cook away for 4 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to get our chicken sliced up that we're gonna have with this.
All right, friends, so this is the mushroom cream sauce that I had mentioned that we had with last night's supper. So we're just going to add to this for the sauce for tonight's supper. So we are going to add some flour to make kind of like a roux. We're going to cook that for a minute, and then we are going to go ahead and add the next ingredient. We're going to get that garlic in, the leftover garlic that I forgot to use up. So we're going to add that in for some beautiful flavor. And next we are going to add the star of the show, our heavy cream, to make our creamy kind of Alfredo sauce. So I don't measure this part as per usual, but you just want to basically thin out the sauce to a texture and consistency that your family will like. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of the pasta water that I saved, again, just to thin the sauce out to our liking. And next I'm just going to add some chicken broth concentrate. At this point, our sauce has been cooking for a good 10 minutes, so we give it one final stir. Now, I didn't record this part, but I did end up adding some milk, again, just to thin it out a little further. And friend, let me tell you, this sauce ended up being phenomenal. I just do a little taste test here and it tastes so good. Now, one thing I wish I would have done was thin the sauce out a little bit further. Once we got it in with the pasta and it ended up sitting for a few minutes before we ate it, it actually thickened up even further. So it was just a little bit too thick for our liking, but it was still delicious. So I do go ahead, I had some leftover Parmesan in the fridge, so I go ahead and grate the leftover Parmesan, and I actually put the entire rind right into the sauce as well. And that just adds some beautiful flavor and it does help to thicken the sauce a little bit further. So we're going to add our pre-cooked chicken that we did up earlier, and that is our beautiful sauce done. Again, like I said, this ended up being so delicious. If you've never made your own cream sauce, I highly suggest it. It's so easy and it really elevates any meal. It turned this meal just into perfection. Again, I just wish I had have thinned out that sauce a little bit, but taste-wise, it was absolutely delicious. And here we have our beautiful glaze to go on the top of our meatloaves. This glaze was also really good. I mean, you can't go wrong with ketchup and vinegar and brown sugar. Like, all of those things are absolutely delicious on their own. So we just divide it between the two meatloaves, spread it out on top, and then pop them back into the oven for an additional, I think it was about 15 minutes we ended up putting them back in there. And again, this meatloaf, we enjoyed it so much. It was so good. I cannot tell you how much we really enjoyed them with the scalloped potatoes.
All right, friends, so we are at the end of our meal prep Sunday cooking day. So we got lots accomplished today. I'm actually really happy with everything we got done. So I'm just going to show you here. So this is our Borzen ravioli with chicken and cream sauce. And I had a little taste and it's delicious. So we'll have that for supper tonight, probably with a side salad of some sort. This is what our chicken tikka masala is looking like. I'm gonna make sure I don't dump it out. And I had a taste of it too, and it is absolutely delicious. So that one we will probably enjoy, not tomorrow night, but Tuesday night we will enjoy this one. And I'll just do a quick minute rice and probably a side salad, and that will be supper and it will be amazing. I also browned up, I had 2 pounds of ground beef and a pound of hot Italian sausage. My plan was originally to make a lasagna bechamel, I think it's called. It's a new recipe to me, but of course I didn't have time. So what I like to do in a situation like this, I've already thawed out my meat, just go ahead and cook it up, and I'll put it into a freezer bag, write the information on it, and pop it into the freezer. And then on a day when I know that I'm going to go ahead and make my lasagna, or I could even use this in a chili. You could use it in anything that spaghetti and meat sauce, just knowing that the hot Italian sausage is in there. But I really want to try this recipe, so I'm hoping that I will make this lasagna with the bechamel sauce. So what I'll do, again, I'll just freeze that, and that will be ready to go for us when we're ready for it. And then we've got our 2 beautiful meatloaves, and they smell delicious, so we're really excited for that. So we'll probably end up doing meatloaf tomorrow night. So I like to kind of mix up our proteins. So tonight we're having chicken as our protein. Tomorrow night we'll do beef as our protein. Tuesday night we will do the chicken tikka masala. Unless I have tons of leftovers of this, then we'll use this up, and I might just freeze the chicken tikka masala, but we'll just see how the week goes. My husband Brayden and I take leftovers in our lunch every day, so that's why we like to kind of rotate it out a little bit, because we'll have this for supper tonight and lunch tomorrow, and then we'll have this for supper tomorrow night and lunch the next day, and so on and so forth. So that's it for today's video, guys. I wanted to thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate that you take time out of your day to spend time with me. It means so much to me. I hope you're having a great day, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care, friends.